very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy that Mr. Leoz and Mr. Ba did the presentation before me, because I will skip several slides, and I have to say that they did a very good presentation on the current situation for construction products. However, when we get to the harmonized or preparation of harmonized standards or of European standards, it's not so easy to get to them. But I will explain a little bit how it works. I will also give some notes on structural Eurocodes, because it was asked to give some information. But keep in mind that structural Eurocodes or the European standard for Eurocodes are not harmonized standards. So it's also it's even more complex, I would say, than a harmonized standard. A short summary. I will focus very briefly on a new approach in harmonized standards. The presentation from Mr. Leoz is very clear on this, so I will skip very fast. I will explain the standardization request from the Commission, so the mandate for construction products for sure. And I will get you on usually what we get in the European Standard for Construction Products, with some examples also of the information included in the Annex ZB. So basically dealing with how the manufacturer should afterwards do all the different tasks that he is obliged, and how to CMark and so on to prepare the declaration of performance, and at the end, the structural Eurocodes. It's a very extensive presentation. I hope that I will manage to do it in all the time that I have. Now, so basic principles. Usually we have, when we see CE marking, we think about presumption of conformity. This is usually true, but not always. And it has very clearly been explained this morning that this doesn't apply for construction products. So for new approach directives, we have essential requirements in the directive, and the standards are the tools to ensure that we comply with the essential requirements of the directives. So as I say, in the end, manufacturers are using those standards on a voluntary basis, with some exceptions in the construction sector. Even if it's not a new approach, they are in a way obliged to use them. And for a new approach, if they have a CE marking, it means that the product can be widely accepted. For a construction product, it's not exactly like this. In terms of how this is working, so we have the directive with the essential requirements, we have a request from the Commission, so a mandate, and we have the preparation of the European standards. As it is clearly written in these slides, a European standard is voluntary in its use. So the manufacturer is always using a standard on a voluntary basis. I would say even for a construction product, the European standard is voluntary. There are some aspects that, because of the CPR, are not anymore. But in terms of full standard, the European standard is still voluntary. And one of the main differences, and I will come back to that, is that for new approach, presumption of conformity, construction products, not. And now, an important aspect as well, what are SAN and SANELEC developing? European standards or European harmonized standards? We are preparing European standards. Who decides if it's harmonized or not is the Commission. So we are preparing European standards, voluntary standards. So how does this work? And this is a slide that explains usually for all standardization requests. So we have different types of harmonized standards. Sometimes it's for products, sometimes are just test methods, so that the Commission decides for supporting the European legislation. And in the beginning, there is always the mandate. We prepare, or first of all, we accept the mandate and we prepare the European standard. As I said, for new approach for construction products, we usually have Annex ZB that makes the link between the standard and the essential requirements. For construction, we'll get to that. And after that, there is the citation of the European standard reference in the official journal of the European Union. And only then we have a harmonized standard, because we may have a European standard that is published, including, for instance, Annex ZB, but it may not be harmonized. It's only harmonized when the Commission is citing in the official journal. Now, how to identify? If you are not very experienced, it may be difficult. There are several lists. They are all published in the official journal, for sure. The update of those lists are not on a regular basis and pretty much depend on the sector. And look in the official journal to see if your product is covered by harmonized standard may be a very challenging task. Now, I have included some links in the presentation where you can find a very interesting website, if it works, where you can find all the new approach directives, and construction is also included, in terms of that, in principle, the harmonized standard gives presumption of conformity or supports the requirements of the directives. So, and there are several: gas appliances, cableway installations, EMC, construction. So, and in this website you can see there are always the link to the official, or to the harmonized standards, which is a very interesting source of information, I would say. I also included the link to the DG Enterprise website, where you can find the list of harmonized standards for construction products. And I will go on with an example. This is the latest extract of the official journal for construction product. So you can see, for instance, EN1 from 1998 is harmonized standard, and is the only way of CE marking a construction product for fluid oil stoves with vaporizing burners. So in order to know which products are covered, you have to see the scope of the standard. Now, as I said, new approach directive and the construction products regulation and the construction products directive are not following completely the same principles. The construction product regulation is also following the new legislative framework. So the criteria for notification and third parties, the market surveillance provisions are the same as in the new approach. But the main difference: CE marking for a construction product doesn't mean conformity to basic work requirements, for instance, of the construction products regulation. It doesn't mean conformity with the European standard. And this purely, as Mr. Barr said very clearly, it's just the information accompanying the product and the declared performance of that product. It must be considered accurate and reliable, and at the end, the manufacturer is the full responsible for what is declaring. So this is what CE marking means for a construction product. So if someone tells you that this means that this product is conform to a standard or to the CPR, it's not true. Now, how do we get on harmonized standards? So the Commission is fully responsible to ask SEN and SENELEC, and also ETSI for other areas, to prepare harmonized standards. So the main principle for the construction sector is that the Commission will elaborate a mandate for construction products that are likely to be subject to technical barriers to trade. In this mandate, there will be provisions that at the end the standards will serve the purpose of the Construction Products Directive in the past, and now the Construction Products Regulation. And a very important aspect that sometimes the member states are forgetting is that, in principle, we'll take into account all the characteristics that are legally required in each member state. And unfortunately, very often, or in some cases, it seems that this is not true, or the message outside is that this is not covering all the aspects. But anyway, And an important point is that what has been done under the CPD has to be considered as being done under the CPR. So what the Commission has asked SEN and SENELEC Management Center to prepare and develop in terms of harmonized standards, it's valid, which is a reassuring message from Mr. Leoz. I hope that the Commission still thinks the same. How it works. The mandate includes several parts. So one is the ground, so the legal basis of the document explaining why the Commission is giving the mandate to SEN and SENELEC. It includes a part that is the execution of the mandate, so explaining what is the work program that is expected, the type of supporting standards, usually these test methods or calculation methods to assess the performance of a product. It also explains that this work program needs to be accepted by the Commission, the time frame for development of the standards, and that everything needs to be accepted by the Commission. It also includes a chapter that goes further on the content for harmonized standards. It also includes 4 annexes. The first one is identifying the type of products that the mandate is covering. The second one is one of the most important ones, is identifying the product characteristics that should be considered and the intended uses. So saying, for instance, for a structural product, we have to consider mechanical resistance. So this is the type of information or characteristic that you will have in Annex 2. In Annex 3, it says what are the type of, what is the system that this family of products are covered. Basically, what is the legal decision from the Commission saying at the end the manufacturer needs to see if he needs to contact a third-party authority or a notified body for the different systems. So the different systems that have been previously explained. And usually there was also an Annex 4 dealing with dangerous substance that usually was empty because unfortunately dangerous substances are not yet covered at European level. So every time a manufacturer goes to each country, he has to do whatever the member states are asking. So you may have a CE-marked product, but you have to fulfill the 27 member states regulations. There are some exceptions, very few I would say, where the harmonized standard includes already some substances. Now, where to find the mandates? You can see there is a link to the Commission database where all the documents, all the mandates that have been forwarded to SEN, SENELEC, also ETSI, are available. You can just search for the number, a title, and you'll have a list. I give you an example of mandate 131. So you have a direct link to the mandate, and you can see the content of the document. If it works, yeah. I will increase quickly. So this mandate includes pipes, tanks, and ancillaries. And you will see that for products not in contact with water intended for human consumption, because water intended for human consumption are also not covered for the time being at European level. So if we go through the document, we will find different chapters I referred. We have the grounds, the execution of the mandate, the information on what the harmonized standard should contain, and the annexes. This is the important part, basically identifying what kind of products, materials are included in the scope of the mandate. This is not an extensive list, so if at the technical level we identify other products, other materials, we can propose, and it's up to the Commission and the Member States to accept. So an important part where I wanted to come is the Annex 2. So this is usually the type of request for harmonized standard. So those are, in principle, the characteristics that are regulated at national level in all the member states. Well, not all are regulated in the different aspects, but at least one is regulated, one or two or more. So in all the member states, those characteristics are regulated. So those characteristics, the technical committees need to identify if they have a way of assessing the performance for those, or with proxy characteristics. I will get to that. And this is the basis for the CE marking. I'm not saying that the CE marking will mean that we have to provide something for each one, because there are different ways of, so the member states may ask for crushing strength, but usually at the technical level, we are expressing the performance in a related way, not exactly as crushing strength. So, but I will explain a little bit more. And if we go on, so we have different families of products, and we also have Annex 3 that says which is the system that these products are affected. So basically the type of intervention that there is in this case is system 3, so only needed a notified laboratory. Okay, that's moving on. How does it work then? We receive the mandate that includes all this information, and each technical committee, in principle, we have a structure of technical committees that is more or less in line with the family of mandates that we have. So some mandates can affect several technical committees, and each technical committee has to prepare an answer to the mandate. So indicated what are the product families that the standard addresses, intended uses, and the essential characteristics that will be included in the standard. So when we prepare the answer to the mandate, there is a list of standards that will be prepared, including the scope of the standard that can be wider than what we are proposing, and I will explain a little bit later, and which are the characteristics or the proxies that will be used. So instead of crushing strength, we will say, we will not declare crushing strength, but we declare something else. But will be for the same purpose. Now, how does it work this afterwards? So the technical committees prepare the answer to the mandate. They provide the information to CCMC, Sense Analytic Management Center. There is a SEN consultant that is ensuring that all the aspects requested in the mandate are answered by the technical committee. We inform the Commission of this answer to the mandate. The Commission consults the member states to say if the member states agree in the way that we are preparing the standard. The Commission may accept, reject, comment. And so this is sometimes an interactive process. At the end, if everything is accepted, we prepare the standards. When the standard is finalized, we propose the references to the Commission, and the Commission may cite the standard, and it will be harmonized at that time. Now, the standards. We have to keep in mind the following. Usually, a European standard for a construction product are technical tools to assess the behavior of the product. Usually, they don't include provisions for manufacturing. They do not include provisions for installation or maintenance. Sometimes they may say that the manufacturer shall give information on how to install the product, because it may need to be installed in a certain way. But as referred this morning, installation is responsibility of the member states. So it's the member states that are defining which are the rules for installation. The standard should include clearly, may not be always the case, which products are covered and excluded, intended uses, which are the test or assessment methods, and how to express the results. Now, this is, we have been working also internally in order to ensure that all revision of standards have clearly all the information that is needed for afterwards CE marking, preparing declaration of performance, and that the information is clearly structured in a certain way. This is our ideal structure for a harmonized standard. And some of the points are just some of the internal regulations for writing a standard. For instance, the forward, if it's needed an introduction, the scope, normative references. These are the internal regulations for standards that define this. What is important and what harmonized standard or a candidate harmonized standard should have is that we should have a clause 4 with product characteristics. So identifying all the characteristics that are relevant for a product. There is an important point in this clause 4. Usually clause 4 for a standard means the requirements in the standard. There was some discussion in the past that some member states could associate requirements with additional requirements, so we decided now to change from requirements to product characteristics. So in clause 5, we will have the references to all the test assessment methods to test these characteristics. Clause 6 is where all the information for ensuring that the performance determined in the product type can be ensured. So how the manufacturer should ensure that he is maintaining the performances. And if needed, we still have clause 7 and 8, and also normative annexes. An important point, as you can see in the bottom, Annex ZB that makes the link between the regulatory part and the standard is informative. So there is no obligation if you only want to follow a standard, you don't need the Annex ZB. You also have to keep in mind that the European standard may be used outside Europe. So Annex ZB is not relevant if you are outside Europe. Now, and before continuing, it's important to keep in mind that European standard should contain all the aspects that are technically relevant for assessing the product, independent of what the mandate is asking or not. So, and you will see in one of the next slides more clearly what I meant. But the Annex ZB is making a clear link between what the mandate asked and how the standard asks to address those aspects. So basically, we have a full standard, and I will give you afterwards an example of a current standard. We have aspects addressed in the standard, but only part of it is linking to the harmonized area. So there are some characteristics that are and can be CE marked. There are others that, for instance, are not dealing with mandated characteristics, or even other aspects more in general, not that the market may wishes to have in the standard. So this is an example of a clause 4 of the standard. So you can see the type of characteristics that usually are addressed for a product standard. You have, for instance, impact resistance, height, thermal transmittance, durability, air permeability. We also have, in this case, electromagnetic compatibility, which is a new approach directive, and this standard is covering aspects from both directives. So there is Annex ZB for construction, and there is Annex ZB for EMC. You will see the difference. And some of those characteristics are not linked with the CE marking. So now, what is the Annex ZA? The Annex ZA for a construction product comes with the introduction, making the link of the product with the mandate. So usually this is the first part of the Annex ZA. The first and one of the most important tables in the Annex ZA is table ZA1, where you identify which are the essential characteristics that the standard is addressing for each intended use. So basically, you had in the previous slide a series of characteristics. Some of them, not all, can be used for CE marking purpose. What does that mean? At national level, some of the member states may have regulations for those characteristics. So if you use the standard to assess the performance of the product, you can CE mark, you can introduce your product in the market. You have to fulfill the national values or the national requirements for those performances for a certain intended use, and no one should be asking for something else. So you can see here table ZA1 and ZA1, because this product is covering intended use that is for external use in escape routes, and the second table is for internal use in escape routes. So the characteristics relevant for internal and the external use are different. So if you have a door, it may be the same, but if it's used for internal or external, the characteristics, the legal requirements at national level may be different. But the mandate usually is making this distinction between which are the characteristics relevant or not. And also at the technical level, the experts may also propose to the Commission and the member states that some characteristics, for instance, are not relevant for a certain intended use. Now, as I said before, the mandate identifies which are the systems that are applicable for a certain product and intended use. And you can see, it's a bit small, but you can see that for fire smoke compartmentation and on escape routes, the applicable system, this is still based on CPD, so the terminology is not the same now, but before it was the system, attestation of conformity system 1 now, system of AVCP system is 1. For other declared specific uses, it was system 3, and for internal communication was system 4. So depending on what is the intended use that the manufacturer is declaring, he will use a different system. So if he uses, in this case, a door for internal communication only, there is no need to have a third-party intervention in the system. Now, what Annex ZA also includes is table ZA3, where there is a distinction between the tasks on the assessment and verification of constants of performance that are responsibility of a notified body, if there is intervention, and which are the tasks that are only responsibility of the manufacturer. In this case, system 1, you can see FPC and further testing are manufacturer. For a notified body, we have initial type testing, initial inspection. You can see another example. For system 4, there are only tasks for the manufacturer. Now, CE marking. The Annex ZA also includes an example of the CE marking. This extract is from our template for the Annex ZA. There is a link to it. So explaining which is the information that goes where. And I didn't include an example of the declaration of performance because the regulation is clear on what the declaration of performance should contain. There is now these changes on what information can be or not. And also, in this template for the Annex ZA, we included an example based on the CPR of the Declaration of Performance, and we have been addressed by a series of comments that this example is giving more problems than solutions. So we are considering now not having any example for Declaration of Performance in the template for the Annex ZB. As I said, this product is also covered by, or can also be used, or has also some requirements under the EMC. So, in this case, the standard addresses to some of those requirements, and you can see that compliance with clause 4.12 provides presumption of conformity with the requirements of the EMC directive. As you can see, it's much easier when you are dealing with a new approach directive. This is the Annex ZB for a new approach directive. Now, sources of information. I've included a link to the SEN construction website. You have a SEN template for the Annex ZB, which gives you some instruction on how to establish Annex ZB. This is purely for standardization writers, but it gives you some information on what means each part of the Annex ZB. We also have a SEN guide for the AVCP clauses, so on how to establish clause 6, on how the manufacturer should ensure that he maintains the performance declared. Now, we are also finalizing a SEN guide with the rules for the drafting and presentation of candidate harmonized product standards for construction products. It follows the structure that I referred before. So basically, is explaining what is expected to have in each of one of those clauses. Now, structure Eurocodes. I will be very brief in structure Eurocodes. It's not a very simple sector, I would call it like that. Just a small background. The Eurocodes have been started by a Commission initiative back to 1976. There have been several developments and transference from the Commission to SEN. There have been several mandates as well for further improvement, for changing Eurocodes into ENVs, European standards. And they have been finalized in 2007. In between, since 2008, there was the publication of the documents, and now the series of the Eurocodes, and I will get to more details in the next slide, has been fully published. Now we are starting in a phase of further development of the Eurocodes. Now, what are the structural Eurocodes? So it's a series of European standards for structural design of buildings and other civil engineering structures. We have 58 parts, and you can see a list of them, and are the preferred reference for technical specifications in public procurement in EU and in NAFTA. You can see here that structural Eurocodes provide requirements for structural design. They are necessary to define safety levels, actions, principles and rules for design and verification. They are different for different materials. We have 10 Eurocodes currently, 58 parts and more than 5,000 pages. It's an incredible technical tool, and it's really huge, the size of those documents. There is a specific aspect for Eurocodes, is that they allow the existence of national determined parameters. You can see here that we have one basic Eurocode, that is EN 1990. Afterwards, we have EN 1991 with actions on structures, and we have afterwards 6 parts dealing with materials. So EN 1992, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 are dealing with specific materials. So, for instance, 3 is steel, 5 is timber, 9 is aluminium, And we also have EN 1997 and EN 1998 dealing with geotechnical and seismic design. So, as I said, one of the special aspects of the Eurocodes is that they allow the use of national determined parameters. What does that mean? So, in each Eurocode we have default values in the European standard and recommendation for national values. However, these recommended values are very closely linked with national regulations. So usually are the national regulations that are imposing these values. So they have to be specific in the several countries. But some of them also allow to diverge in geographical aspect, geological or climatic. And we may also have information on supporting information for the use at national level. And they are all in a national annex. Now, how does this work? So we have the European standard that is the same all over Europe, and it's very clearly identifying the standards where are the aspects that you can include national information. So you will have a national annex saying that when you go to this country, this is the value that you have to use. There are several sources of information in the CERN website, in the GRC website, also the Commission. There is an important statement that I have to do concerning the Eurocodes. Eurocodes are European standards that are all the CERN members have adopted Eurocodes at national level because the coexistence period with national documents, well, with national standards, has finished. However, Eurocodes in some countries is national regulation. Well, the rules for structural design in some countries are national legislation. So it means that in some countries, for some of the parts of the Eurocodes, you cannot use the Eurocodes because you are obliged by law to use something else. There is a Commission communication advising the member states to adopt the Eurocodes as national design rules. There are some member states that have done that. For instance, Germany is completely referring to the Eurocodes, but there are still some other countries that haven't done that. So, harmonized standards for construction products are in a way mandatory for the CE marking. Eurocodes may also be mandatory for use if the national legislation is making reference to them. As a main principle, the standard is still voluntary. However, the legislation may make them compulsory. I also include some links for information on CEN, CENELEC, internal regulations, publications, and some newsletters. And that's all.